Hey everyone, as some of you are aware, loser apologist Subboor Ahmad finally found the courage to debate me online after pretending to have organized a live debate, and it went very badly for him. Needing to spin things for his flock so that they keep paying his rent, he's been posting an avalanche of content in the aftermath, so I thought it would be fun to check out what he's been doing and make fun of it. If you missed the debate, it's linked in the description, but if you'd rather just get the gist of it, it went something like this.
Is Darwinian evolution a fact? Dennis Noble, Dennis Noble, Dennis Noble's Dennis Noble, Dennis Noble, Dennis Noble is Dennis Noble here, Dennis Noble is a complete clown. Dennis Noble, Dennis Noble, Dennis Noble, Dennis Noble is Dennis Noble, Dennis Noble, Dennis Noble. According to Dennis Noble, Noble, I can make a replica of you, Dennis Noble. Noble said, Noble is another Dennis Noble can come out. According to Dennis Noble, so according to Dennis Noble, Dennis Noble is Dennis Noble. Dennis Noble, according to Noble, have Dennis Noble's Dennis Noble is a complete clown. Dennis Noble. Why is Dennis Noble wrong? Dennis Noble is a joke. Dennis Noble. Can you explain his perspective on Aristotle's distinctions and the nature of causality?
Yes, in the most stunning display of apologist sliminess I've ever seen, even worse than Kent Hovind, Subboor literally refused to debate the topic he himself chose, Darwinian evolution, and spent the entire time blindly referencing Dennis Noble as though he understands a single thing Noble says, or as though it does anything whatsoever to contradict well-understood evolutionary biology. The irony is that, just like with other frauds I've debated, I began my opening statement by predicting everything that my opponent would do, only to watch him spend 90 minutes doing exclusively those things. It's just breathtaking. Here is Subboor whining about the definitions of words and deliberately distorting them.
Remember, there's two different ways that you're using the word Darwinian evolution. When I referred to Darwinian evolution, I referred to the idea that random mutations plus natural selection can generate mind and body.
Here he is desperately running away from science and just whining repeatedly about irrelevant philosophical concepts to try and sound intelligent.
You're already changing the subject, though, by the way. You're already changing the subject.
Dave, can you let him finish?
I'm going to explain this, okay? So let me explain this to you in very simple terms. Aristotle made distinctions about causality. I know you're nodding your head because it's too much for you, but let me just explain.
No, you're just like, we're talking about science and you're jumping to philosophy because you can't talk about science. You can't do it.
And there was plenty of quote mining and deception as well.
There is a framework issue that Subboor has raised, which is a big mistake. His mentioning E.O. Wilson on behalf of his idea is a huge distortion. I felt that Subboor had misrepresented what I had written.
Like the painfully long section where Subboor vomited up his distorted Dawkins quote over and over again.
So what we are really speaking about is, does natural selection plus random mutations, can it create mind and body as the selfish gene purports it can?
Of course, anyone who isn't a complete moron understands that Dawkins meant exactly what I said, that the genome is the instructions for an organism, like a human, both body and mind. Genes are the necessary prerequisites for building a body and mind. Not deterministically, they're just the blueprint. But every time I said gene expression, Subboor tried to change the subject because he doesn't know what that means, even though he was supposed to learn it in 9th grade. Here is proof that Subboor doesn't know what gene expression means.
So are you saying that gene expression generates an organism? Can we just say that? What are you saying?
I never used the word gene expression. That's epigenetics, by the way.
No.
By the way,
gene expression is epigenetics. Every time you try to talk about science, you get this gem of stupidity, like gene expression is epigenetics.
One at a time, gentlemen.
What the hell does that mean?
Oh yeah, he doesn't know what epigenetics is either. Anyway, to put it succinctly, this gene-centered view of evolution posits that genes are the primary units of selection, not organisms, and that genes use bodies as survival machines to propagate themselves. That's all. Honestly, I'm not sure that Subboor even knows what a gene is. He's that clueless. So this strategy did not bear much fruit for him. And let's not forget about his fourth tactic, shouting and constantly talking over people to try and prevent them from making any points or prove that he's lying about something. Here's a great example of him doing that.
Why are you giving evidence for Darwinian evolution by citing common ancestry?
I didn't do that.
I invited you to a separate
debate. I didn't do that. Where did I do that?
I invite, look, go back to Muhammad Ali's
You're,
channel. Go back to the
I,
Muslim Lanterns channel.
when I said that that
I
Darwinian
invite you
evolution
to
factually
see the
occurs, I cited
universal common
mutations
Subboor,
in
let Dave
bacteria.
respond. Let Dave
I
respond.
cited
selection of random mutations.
Shut your mouth.
You
Shut your mouth.
see-
I'm responding to the dumb thing you said. You're trying to prevent me. Thanks for muting him. I said, as evidence for evolution by natural selection, I was citing mutations in bacteria producing antibiotic resistance. That's something we observe, right? That's Darwinian evolution by natural selection. I didn't bring up common ancestry as evidence for Darwinian evolution. I'm talking about mechanisms that we can observe today, and then we can extrapolate that into the past, and then we find other evidence from the fossil record, paleontology, biological anthropology, all these other things.
I love the look on this douchebag's face when he realizes he's been muted, and I'm actively proving him wrong for everyone to hear without interruption. It's beautiful. Apart from these 4 tactics I readily predicted, his other main strategy was to just toss out as much random terminology as possible, demand that I define or explain it even though he absolutely can't do that himself, and just hope that by doing this enough times he could get a short soundbite of me appearing to not know something so that he could make a YouTube short out of it. This also repeatedly backfired, like the time he put up a slide that just said transgenerational epigenetic inheritance, asked me to explain it, which I promptly did, and then he just pretended he wanted me to talk about something else he also doesn't understand.
Why don't you explain to me first what this is? And if you fail to do so, then I'll do it.
Okay, so epigenetics, we're talking about modifications to the genome that alter the when genes can be expressed, so DNA methylation and stuff like that. There is some pretty decent evidence for a little bit of inheritance of this over a generation or two. So mainly histone modification, right? If a histone is coordinated to a gene, then it can't be expressed. And if it's not, then it can be expressed. So there are environmental influences that can determine whether the gene can be transcribed at any given time. And it's actually pretty cool. Over the past couple of decades, we figured out that there is some element of inheritance here, maybe a generation or two, but that's it. You have no evidence that this is the same as like random mutations being inherited. So have fun trying to talk about this.
Okay, you didn't mention genetic assimilation.
Pretty embarrassing, no? And he did this while repeatedly claiming he was giving me an education. The complete reversal of reality with schmucks like Subboor is just delicious. As for the constant references to Dennis Noble, to put it as succinctly as possible, Dennis Noble is not an evolutionary biologist, he's a physiologist. He's been paid by the Templeton Foundation to put out rhetoric for public consumption that can be interpreted by creationists as a challenge to evolution, and his work in this area is a joke. Given that I will soon publish a lengthy video entirely on Noble and his deliberately deceptive rhetoric, there's no need to discuss it further here. But for the context of this exchange, Subboor would be very sad to learn that Daddy Dennis does not support his bastardization of terminology he doesn't understand.
What we refer to as neo-Darwinism is not Darwinism. That's the first thing to make very clear.
I wonder what Daddy Dennis would think about Subboor spending 90 minutes avoiding the topic of the debate.
And he's
You titled the debate, Is Darwinian Evolution a Fact? And then your entire opening statement had nothing to do with the title of the debate. And then you got mad at me for having an opening statement about the title of the debate. How insane is that? It's ridiculous. Everyone is laughing at you right
that
now.
doesn't make any sense because I was using Dennis Noble's definition of neo-Darwinism.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to bring it to an end.
Neo-Darwinism. Is neo-Darwinism the same as Darwinism?
No.
Subboor, answer the question. No.
Pretty pathetic. He also would be the first to tell Subboor that none of these concepts he doesn't understand challenge Darwinian evolution in any way. Genetic assimilation is just adaptive traits being assimilated into the genome. It's entirely Darwinian. Somatic hypermutation occurs in the immune system and has nothing to do with germline cells that would be relevant to evolution, since only mutation in gametes are passed on. Literally none of it was relevant to the topic in even the slightest way, no matter which evolutionary paradigm he thought he was talking about. Oh yeah, one last thing. Let's add racial slurs to Subboor's arsenal of depraved debate tactics.
Or is that the way that a Pajit talks? You acted like a Pajit and you threatened to shit on the guy's face.
I don't know what Pajit is. I don't know what that means.
That's right. Neither myself nor the moderator knew what Pajit means, but as multiple people have now informed me, it's basically like the N-word for Indians. To put the degeneracy of this behavior into perspective, how do you think people would react if I called Subboor a sand n***er in the debate? That would be pretty uncalled for, don't you think? Could be grounds for some measure of cancellation, don't you think? Even given how much of a toxic, deceptive, slanderous piece of shit he is, I would never stoop that low. Subboor apparently does not have such moral standards. It would be a shame if tons of people were to inform his institution of study that they are affiliating with such a racist cretin, wouldn't it? Take a look at this guy in Poland using the same slur.
You're the world's most irresponsible breeders. You're in the whitest country possible.
What do you mean everything?
Yes. You're a biological weapon in this country. Hey, Pajit, you're a biological weapon in this country. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're a white woman. What are you going to do? Mix your genetics up with the shit skin?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do I mean? There's 1.3 billion of those Pajits.
What are you talking about me like that?
There's 1.3 billion Pajits.
Just leave us, okay?
This is the whitest country
Just
on
leave
earth.
us.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Should this guy be allowed to study at an institute of higher learning? I'm not so sure. Anti-Indian hate is not something that should be expressed in seriousness or as a joke, and I'll link to this report in the description for those who want to learn more about the terrible impact of precisely this hate speech. Anyway, as you can see, the debate was a total train wreck for Subboor, and his obligatory damage control isn't any better. To be honest, I recall seeing that he had done some kind of debate analysis on his channel just a day or two after the debate, but when I went to look for it just now, I couldn't find it. Maybe he canceled it, or maybe it was so pathetic that he just deleted it after the fact, but he's done several interviews about it on other channels, so let's look at those instead. Here's one that appears to be in the same library study room thingy where he was standing during the debate.
How did that go?
Remember back in the days, our debates in Speaker's Corner. It's basically one of those, but sitting down.
Yes, it was just like Speaker's Corner, where you regularly act like a raving lunatic pretending to be intelligent.
What's your basic idea?
Natural selection through mutation, that's the basic idea.
Natural selection through mutation. Let me just tell you something. I'm not someone who gets angry often, but I'll tell you something that just really me off. When somebody tries to make claims and you shoot down those claims, and then as you've beaten them on the floor, they decide to shout something back at you, like, huh, what did you say? And then they try and defend themselves. So you're telling me the basic that you understand about Darwinian evolution is this. It's natural selection plus mutation. Well, guess what? That's not even Darwinism. It's natural selection plus random mutations.
So what?
If it's natural selection plus mutations, guess what it becomes? Epigenetics, orthogenetic evolution. So even though you were slapped on the floor, you said, no, I do understand something. I'm just going to tell you, this is what I understand. Two friggin' terms, mutation and natural selection, and you still got it wrong.
I'm glad you can admit that you were a complete buffoon in our debate as well, since everyone who watched it has probably been telling you that nonstop.
If you look at James Fodor, who I debated, Aaron Ra, Alex O'Connor, there was a structure, there was a flow, there was a way of, okay, let's dissect this. With this guy, he was not engaging. So my opening, he didn't engage with. My second opening, he didn't engage. He didn't engage with those things.
Yeah, with those other people, you actually debated the topic you chose. That's why they engaged with you, because you were talking about the debate topic. Those are the debates I watched to prepare for this one, which is why all of my slides were responses to or critiques of things you said in those other debates with the same exact title. For some reason with me, you refused to talk about the topic you chose for the entire 90 minutes, so I don't know what the fuck you're complaining about.
Your reaction video is nonsense. Now, he tried to defend it, and even his fans now are trying to say...
He even admitted at a point, oh, it's just a reaction video.
Yeah, just a reaction video. The thing is, oh, it's just off the cuff or whatever. Would a historian ever say World War II took place in 1960s? Never!
Hey dumbass, people are making fun of you because your entire opening statement was whining about one off-the-cuff statement I made in a 3-hour reaction video while drinking whiskey where I got a date a bit wrong. Biology isn't about memorizing a bunch of dates. It's about understanding natural processes and mechanisms in a fundamental way, which you don't. That's why you're humiliating yourself whining about dates.
What I mean by Darwinism
You clearly know because you reacted in a 3-hour-long video. So you know what I'm talking about when I say neo-Darwinism.
You just switched terms mid-sentence. You started with Darwinism and then switched to neo-Darwinism. And then your dumb face has the balls to repeatedly accuse me of false equivocation. Are you immune to shame? Is this just a game for you to see how transparently dishonest and stupid you can be and still have your gullible flock send you money? I've never seen anything like it. It's almost impressive. Do I need to have Daddy Dennis scold you again, Subboor?
The important thing here is to reiterate what I said much earlier on in our discussion, which is that Darwinism is not neo-Darwinism.
The definition of Darwinism, which I've been harping on about for years, is natural selection plus genetic mutations, random mutations, created body and mind.
Well, again, that's literally meaningless, so maybe you should try and learn the definitions of the terms you're using, eh, dipshit?
Dennis Noble understands Darwinism means neo-Darwinism.
Darwinism is not neo-Darwinism.
4 pillars of neo-Darwinism, which Dennis Noble has said has been demolished.
There are no pillars of Darwinism. Science is not a religion. Google pillars of Darwinism and you just get 1 or 2 shitty books written by creationists. This is why nobody takes you seriously, kiddo.
The man came into the debate not wanting to debate. He came in just trying to
survive.
Damage control, survive through the whole ordeal, basically. It was like he's trying to keep, like we said, his pajamas up.
I'll never get used to this manufactured bravado. Just pretend that the other person is nervous or jittery, as though that makes it true. As I've demonstrated before, all these Dawa dickheads do this.
Why are you shaking? I've got a vibrator in your pocket. Come on, you're getting excited here. I know it's your sexuals are implying you're the sex rabbi.
Now you're back to my sex life.
You're getting overexcited.
This is all they can do. Subboor, you're a bug under my shoe. I looked bored because I genuinely was bored. I played with you for 90 minutes and then threw you in the trash where you belong. Cry about it.
I made it explicitly clear in the beginning. I want 3 debates. I want universal common ancestry, and I want Darwinism, and I want intelligent design. Now, he said no. I want 1 debate, and I brought out the email in my slides. And I made it very clear. Listen, I don't want you to gish gallop.
You asked for 3 debates over a week and a half in Birmingham so that I would justifiably refuse and you wouldn't have to debate me. And we just saw that the topic of the debate is literally irrelevant to you. You just talk about whatever the fuck you want and evade direct questions the whole time. So whining about gish galloping just makes you look like an asshole.
I told him this. Why didn't you read my book? My book came out how long ago?
A month,
at least a
2
month.
months. Yeah.
And how long does it take to read the book? A few days? You are debating me.
Subby, nobody cares about your 100-page pamphlet where you graphically describe yourself filleting Dennis Noble on every page. But don't worry, maybe one day if I'm a little dry on ideas for content, I'll shit all over it for you.
My man came to a debate about Darwinism, and in the environmental selection pressure, he was shown to be incompetent and cowardly, and he has been muted, domesticated, and deselected. And that's the final word. He is finished.
What a cutie patootie. Rehearsed catchphrases are totally better than actually understanding science. Okay, let's take a quick look at this other one.
A person with about 3 million following and a person who has no problem with this brash style of dismissing people, calling them names.
You mean like your boy and his revolting racial slurs? I see you're just another brainwashed hypocrite. Your hero gets to insult anyone he wants and slander them all day long, but nobody gets to do it back to him, even though he actually deserves it. Got it.
The first is to do with the definition, because the definition I used of Darwinism is the definition that I showed on the screen is the same definition as Richard Dawkins and Dennis Noble.
Nope, it isn't. You're lying, as always.
He committed 4 fallacies, 3 formal fallacies, 1 informal fallacy, the fallacy of equivocation, the non sequitur fallacy, and the genetic fallacy, which are formal fallacies, and the informal fallacy of red herring.
Only pseudo-intellectuals list random logical fallacies as a way of deflecting from their inability to actually discuss anything. That's why flat earthers do this all the time.
So you've already begged the question, you stupid retard! False equivalency fallacy. That's called an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. That would be an argument from ignorance fallacy. How many more fallacies have you got?
And in this case, you're just listing things you do all the time, like your false equivocation of Darwinism and neo-Darwinism.
and why people like Noble should be taken seriously, and why people like Richard Dawkins and then the people who are influenced by them and get worse than them are not intellectually honest.
Yes, anyone who explains basic biology you don't like is dishonest, while you do nothing but lie all the time. Amazing. Also, only creationists take Noble seriously. Sorry.
There is a sentence which you use as a mode of communication to express what you're going to talk about. But that sentence itself is not what the conversation is limited to. It's what it carries. So, for example, when we say Darwinian evolution, it's not that you're going to discuss the grammar or the syntax of that sentence. It's what it carries. And what it carries is that the selection mutation mechanism, allegedly, is good enough to give rise to mind and body, because that is Darwinism, neo-Darwinism.
Wow, I guess all these douchebags talk like this. Nobody was discussing grammar or syntax. I was discussing the topic of the debate Subboor chose. He wasn't. And the fact that you just said Darwinism and neo-Darwinism back to back as though they're the same thing is blatant damage control by proxy. Did you think that all of Subboor's lies and rhetoric are somehow going to sound more convincing out of your mouth?
On your claim that the mind and body cannot come into existence simply because of what your idea of mutation and selection is. Well, that is exactly what the debate is.
This dumb catchphrase also will not magically begin meaning something just by repeating it. A zygote's genes are expressed and an organism develops. All of its parts. Mutations in the germline can occur and can be selected for, which alters how progeny develop. You're saying nothing.
So basically what he did is this. He said Darwinian evolution is simply natural selection and random mutations. And he also put in common descent.
Jesus fucking Christ. How are you this addicted to lying and misrepresenting everything that everyone says literally all the time? I did not say random mutation. That's what you say. I did not say common descent. I said descent with modification and natural selection.
What's your definition of Darwinism for the context of this debate?
Descent with modification and natural selection. I said it in my opening statement. That's what it is. That's what everybody acknowledges that it is.
I said it repeatedly because that's what it fucking is. Whining like a little bitch all over the internet is never going to change that, buddy. Neither will lying about what I said, since everyone can go and see what I said and conclude that you're a lying shit stain who accuses people of the fallacies he himself is committing.
Darwinian evolution, if we define it in a very trivial way, that random mutations take place. Do they take place? Yes, they do. Do those organisms get selected out that have random mutations? Yes, they do. This is a fact. This is well known. Nobody disagrees with this.
Thank you for conceding the topic of the debate and admitting that I won.
For him to say that this paradigm is not good enough, and obviously when he's talking about the neo-Darwinism, I mean, his entire career is based on that. That's number one. Number two, he debated against, for example, James Tour, and he defended his idea of neo-Darwinism.
Holy hell, this jerk is even dumber than Subboor. My entire career is based on neo-Darwinism? So you have absolutely no idea what I do for a living? Are my calculus tutorials based on neo-Darwinism? How about the ones on organic chemistry or modern physics? And for fuck's sake, when I debated James Tour, I was defending neo-Darwinism? It was about origin of life research, you brain-dead hick. It's abundantly clear that this guy's definition of neo-Darwinism is just any science that hurts his feelings. Pathetic.
Even if you look at the Dover board case, for example, you have the court cases saying that this is the only form of evolution you can teach. You cannot teach intelligent design, cannot teach Lamarckian, cannot teach anything else.
Yeah, intelligent design is religion. You can't teach religion in science class. And students do learn about Lamarckism in the context of how it was posited and then rejected since it isn't true. Want to cry about it?
What about freedom of speech in academia? Right?
Yeah.
So freedom of speech when it comes to Darwinism is not something which is highlighted in the media, but freedom of speech when it comes to other things like religion, it definitely is.
You have freedom of speech, moron. You are free to say insanely stupid things, which you do on a daily basis, and I'm free to make fun of you for it. Hooray, freedom!
In terms of the term Darwinism, I said during the debate, yes, no problem. That trivial definition of Darwinism is fine. And what did he do? He didn't say, okay, let's now tackle, did it create body and mind and this type of thing? He simply didn't know what to do. He was confused himself. And he didn't actually understand the fallacy of equivocation, even though I gave him the example of the doctor. You know, doctor, you're falling down on the floor saying, I have a heart attack. And then someone coming forward and saying, you know, I'm a doctor. They try and help you and they don't know what they're doing. And you find out they have a PhD in gender studies, right?
He's like the T-1000 of pulling things out of his ass. He did not concede the definition of Darwinian evolution that he is calling trivial, because that would mean conceding the debate. He never told this dumb story about a doctor, so I have no idea what he's trying to do there, and it doesn't change the fact that he's the one guilty of false equivocation. And then, of course, he has to throw in a jab at gender studies to reach peak anti-woke douchebag. Amazing.
His psychology was such that he couldn't basically hide the fact that he was being degraded over time in the Q&A. You could see it. And you know, I thought that was really insightful, Kessler, because that for me is more important than just the content.
Yes, you inventing body language out of thin air to pretend that I was losing is more important to you than being able to explain it in a rational way how I lost, because you can't, since I didn't. That's why all you Dawa dickheads constantly proclaim that your opponent is nervous, or upset, or defeated, or whatever you want reality to be, and instruct all your idiot followers to repeat it over and over again like a mantra, so that they don't ever have to exercise critical thinking. You are the exemplar of the post-truth era. You should be in Trump's cabinet.
First of all, he did have that tendency of attacking your arguments in his opening statement. That shows the lack of calmness.
In my opening statement, I debunked a bunch of dumb things Subboor said during other times he debated this topic, and that equals a lack of calmness? The level of delusion and stupidity with these people is just immeasurable. It's so insane and meaningless that there's nothing to even respond to. At least flat earthers say something concrete that can be debunked. With these assholes, it's just, he wasn't calm, which I definitely was, and which wouldn't make me wrong anyway. This goes on for another hour and a half, but there's just no point in watching any more of it. It's a feature film length whining session interspersed with delusions. There is literally zero connection to reality. What else has he been doing? Oh yeah, he dropped this turd. It's him giving a talk that he pretends was supposed to be our debate. I already provided all the receipts in another video which prove that he definitely did not set up a debate. But if you need even more proof that all he did was rent a room, this video is edited so that there is no introduction and never pans to any audience, because there is none. He delivers an entire talk to complete silence. Not one stitch of applause even when he's all finished, and then two dudes ask short, vague questions off camera, probably just the guys running camera and audio.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome. It's supposed to be a debate, but it's no longer a debate. It's actually going to be a talk. He's not going to show he's incompetent, because to show he's incompetent, he has to show some level of competence. Thank you to the Islamic Society and the Student Union for facilitating this talk, and I look forward to your questions. Jazakallah khair. I know that was very detailed and heavy, and who comes here from a biology background? A-level. Okay, good.
He's speaking to nobody. What a terrific audience that would have been for a live debate, eh, Subboor? Pathetic. Here, I fixed your thumbnail for you. Apart from that, he's been frantically uploading short after short after short of brief moments with no context that he can pretend are at all relevant, which makes sense since he flat out admitted during the debate that's all he was really there to do.
And that's going to be a very nice short, by the way.
A very nice short where it's saying absolutely nothing.
And he's also been posting relentlessly on his community tab, continuing to distort definitions and endlessly contradicting himself. Was I bored? Was I uneasy? Was I agitated? It seems like none of these idiots can make up their minds. It's like the guy has no identity outside of wanting to be smarter than me. It's just the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. Here he is claiming I changed the debate title from my upload of the debate. It was Darwinism, not evolution. Well, it was Darwinian evolution, which is a subset of evolution, so this is like whining that the debate was about apples, not fruit. Also, he refused to discuss the topic he chose, so I just titled it accurately. Cope and seethe, bro. He sounds like an incel. Anyway, there's really nothing more to say here. Beyond being the most pathetic debater I've ever encountered, Subboor might be the biggest loser on the internet. He's worse than any flat earther I've encountered, which is saying a lot. They actually attempt to discuss the relevant topic, even if they fail miserably, and when they get humiliated, they might deny it, but they don't go around parading some kind of victory. Subboor drags the goalposts into a pond, slaps a hockey puck with a tennis racket, shouts touchdown, and struts off like a champion. Even a pigeon knocking over chess pieces has more intellectual integrity than this guy. I genuinely feel sorry for the few thousand brainwashed idiots who can't see right through him, and there's absolutely nothing anybody can do to reach them. And so, Subboor goes straight into my pile of punching bags to be picked up and smacked around when I feel like it, and then tossed right back into the pile. Who knows, maybe after I debunk Dennis Noble to smithereens, he'll have a hissy fit, and I can make fun of his damage control. Maybe I'll make fun of his adorable pamphlet. At the moment, I have bigger fish to fry. Thus ends the Subboor saga. At least on my end, I'm sure he'll keep making videos about me every week for the rest of his life. But there's really nothing he can do to reverse the damage caused to his reputation over this whole fiasco, and I think the mockery he receives on a daily basis is the perfect reward for him. I'll see you next time.